Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Spill the Tea. Uh, I'm your host, Keisha, and this is the show where we interview people who will help us, make some decisions on our post-secondary plans. And this is actually episode two. That's right, episode two of QuestBridge, because there was so much great information that we wanted to share with you guys. We didn't want to skim and rush through it all, so we made a second episode just for you guys to hear. And luckily enough for us, Dr. Christian Martell, the director of student recruitment for QuestBridge, is joining us again to help us out, and spill a little bit more tea on QuestBridge. How you doing, Christian?
Thank you for having me, Keisha.
Awesome. I love that you're here with us because we get so many questions about QuestBridge. And besides what QuestBridge is all about, it's all right, then what do I do to become a part of it? So for those of you that didn't get to see episode one, but I suggest you go back and watch it, let's give them a quick review on what QuestBridge is.
Yeah, definitely. I will keep it short because I did go through QuestBridge and everything that we do in that episode one. So definitely highly encourage everyone to watch that. But QuestBridge is a national nonprofit. We've been around since 1994, and really our mission is to connect high achieving low income students with top colleges and help them get through college and help them beyond. And so our premier program that I think we'll spend most of the time today talking about is the National College Match for high school seniors. It's a college admissions and scholarship process where students can be admitted early to some of our 50 college partners, schools like Columbia and Johns Hopkins and MIT and Williams, and they can receive full 4-year scholarships as part of the process. So I'm excited to talk a little bit more about it.
Yes. And you heard those schools that she mentioned, right? This is no joke, people. This is not a test. This is the truth right here. No scams here. No scams. This
No.
is real. And because you're hearing some of these great schools, and there are even more, I'm going to suggest that if you've never gone to the QuestBridge website, go. There's tons of great information. And of course, it lists all of the schools that participate in the program that you, if you're eligible to go for, may have a chance to apply and get into it. So definitely check them out. But besides that, let's get down to the real. All right, wait. I got to get my tea together. Listen, the people need to know if they actually meet some of that criteria to be eligible to, actually apply to QuestBridge. What's the next step? What do they do? So give us the tea, girl.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you believe you're eligible, and we talked a lot about eligibility in that first episode, so I won't cover it here again, but if you think QuestBridge is for you and you're eligible to apply, then really what the application consists of, it is a college application. Let me stress that first. It is a college application, comes really early on in the senior year, so you got to be prepared, but really the components of that are what you will find in many college applications. So we'll ask you information about your academics, right? Your like classes you've taken, the school that you go to, all of those things. We will ask you about what you do outside of the classroom. So activities, things like clubs and sports and things that you do at school, but also things you do in the community, or if you have different things that you do inside your household, right? You're taking care of younger siblings or older family members. We're interested in knowing who you are as a person as well as a student. So we'll ask you about those things. And then we will also ask you about your family's financial background. So that's a little different than other college applications because again, we are also a scholarship application. So we're asking for that information. And it's all self-reporting. You don't have to fill out the FAFSA or the CSS profile quite yet, but we're asking you about that information and hoping that you'll fill it out with, whoever your legal guardian or your parent is. Some of the other application components include 2 essays, so a personal essay, and then another essay of which you could choose a couple of prompts from. We'll also ask a couple of short answers. I think the short answer is we hear a lot from our college partner representatives that they really love the QuestBridge application because of those short answers. We see a lot of personality come through in those. So I hope you have fun answering those when you do them. We also ask for 2 teacher recommendations, and specifically we tell students that they should be asking their teachers early to give them enough time to write really solid, positive recommendations for you, but also really encouraging students to ask teachers that they have had more recently, perhaps in their junior year, maybe even sophomore year, but that have taught them in core academic classes. So those would be things like math class, English, science, social studies or history, and foreign language, right? So, hopefully out of all those subjects, you can find a couple of teachers that will speak really highly on your behalf. And then we'll also ask, yes, hopefully. And then we'll also ask for what's considered the high school counselor recommendation. We call it the school report, just a fancy name. It's your counselor recommending you. And typically, the counselor will also, if it's available, will provide a school profile. The school profile gives us a little bit more context about the school, right? It'll tell us things like where it's located, how many students go there, the typical classes that are offered, things like that. It's totally optional, that school profile. School report, the counselor recommendation is necessary, but the school profile is optional. And then we'll also ask for your high school transcripts, right? So, that official kind of document that tells us what classes you took and what grades you got. Unofficial transcripts are accepted as well. So have to be the sealed envelope. Everything is uploaded online anyway. And then finally, we are test optional, but we do ask, we encourage you to submit test scores if you've taken them. So things like, the PSAT or SAT, ACT, IB, AP classes that you've taken. If you have scores like that you want to submit, you can go ahead and do so, and we'll consider those as well. But again, not necessary. There's in fact only one of our college partners that does require test scores to be admitted. And so happy to share which one that is.
Please. Which one? Which one?
So MIT currently is our only partner
Of
that
course.
absolutely requires test scores to be reported, and they have a lot of good reasons to. And so, but if you're going through the match, we don't require it to be considered a finalist. In fact, about 50% of our applicants last year that were finalists even submitted test scores, so that's okay. And we will still review the other parts of your application. Right? This is a holistic review. So there's no one section of the application that's going to deny you becoming a finalist or deny you being admitted to college. I know test scores in particular, we get the question all the time. There's a lot of anxiety around whether they take it, whether to report it if you do. But again, just letting you know it's really up to you. If you feel like, yes, it's going to help my application, go ahead and let us know. If it brings you a lot of anxiety to let us know, that's okay. Don't include them. It's all right. We will still review your application and give you that fair shake no matter what. So
oh my gosh. Thank you so much for saying that. And let me help you guys out. You can rewind. You can just move backwards and listen to what she said. First, notice she said test optional. All right. It's an option, guys. I get the question all the time if you couldn't tell. You don't have to send it if they're not asking for it. Now, MIT is definitely a special deal there that, look, they're on their own level. They're on their own level. So they make up their own rules. That's the only school you have to worry about. Other than that, optional. If you don't think you did well, don't send it. Okay, it's okay. But there's some other things that you mentioned, which I'm so glad that you talked about the essays, because I tend to work with a lot of students with their essays. And guys, we know that, you're not always doing something really creative when it comes to writing in school, but you don't have to keep everything in this tight little box when you're writing your essay. They want to hear about you. Am I right, Christian? They want to get some information about you. So that's where the personal essay is. Again, personal essay, not academic essay. Okay. And then the short questions. Some students think that it's not that important. What do you think?
It absolutely is. If we're asking it, we're reading it, right? We want it's important to us, right? We read every single thing that you submit, and then we pass it along for other people to read at the college partners, right? And so you want to take and give yourself the time and space to really put in effort into every part of your application. Don't just think that it's all about the personal essay and these little short answers don't mean anything. No, 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 we're asking for it. We're going to review it. So, every piece of the application is really helping build your story, right? And it, I tell students you're kind of building a house, right? Like you don't want every room to look exactly the same. You want to showcase a little bit of yourself differently, right? As you walk through this house, it should all look kind of cohesive, but it shouldn't all look the same. So, if you've already talked about your sports team that you work with or that you're on, you don't have to talk about it somewhere else. You could tell us a little bit about something else somewhere else. And so, you're hopefully have a lot of interest in a lot of things that you've done throughout your high school experience. And so let us know a little bit of that. And I think especially for the writing, just give yourself the time, right? This is not going to be, you're not going to sit down the day before the application is due and write your essay and expect it to be amazing. Like you're going to have to do a couple of drafts. You're going to want to show it to people. You're going to want to read it out loud to make sure it makes sense. Because
thank you, Christian.
usually,
Thank you.
usually when you read it out loud and you're like, oh, that sounds so weird, or that sounds like I just dropped a thesaurus in the sentence. Like, do not speak as you normally would, right? As you normally would speak. And so, there's a couple of tips there, and definitely can talk all day about what I've seen in essays and what to do, what not to do, but I'll pause there.
Thank you so much. Listen, like I said, I help a lot of students out with their college essays also. And some of the things, we don't need a listing of all of your classes and all of your grades on your essays. That's what your transcripts are for. This is about you and what you've done. And I know there are some students, and you can tell me if you've seen this too, where it's like they thought of every depressing thing that ever happened in their life, and they thought that's what the essay has to be about. Y'all could put some happiness in there, put some joy. It could be, you could talk about good things because good things happen to people. It's all right. The other thing that I always see is when they're just trying to, like you said, put every word they learned for the SAT in the essay. You don't talk like that all the time. Come on. Be a normal person.
Yes. If I have to pull up the dictionary as I'm reading an essay, like it's not helping you, right? So we're normal people on the other side reading your essays. We want to be able to read and learn more about you and really have it come off as like your authentic voice, which I think is one of the reasons why those short answers, I think students they are more creative with those sometimes than they are with their essays. And so you can really tell when your voice is coming through on certain parts of the application. We want that to be part of your essays too. So really take the time to be able to do that. So
awesome. Now you mentioned you read it, and I have some students that tend to when they're writing the essay, it's like they're gearing it towards someone that is in the major that they're going into. And is that always the case? It's not always people that are in that major, right? We have a variety, right?
Right. First of all, I will say a lot of students change majors, right? So that's also another thing I hear. It's like, it's okay if you don't know exactly what you want to do. And you certainly, even if you are very certain about what you want to do, you don't have to write about that. I would as a reader, would much rather see sort of, your interest in that subject matter, how that came to be, maybe what you've done to get you even more interested. But you don't have to just tell me like, I want to go to this college and get this scholarship because I want to be a doctor. Like, great. I could put someone else's name on that and it would be their essay too, right? Like that's not telling me anything about you uniquely, right? Like, so, tell me why it is that you want to be a doctor. Tell me about that experience that, when you were young, you went to the hospital and paint that picture for me. And then that makes me understand why, oh, this person said they were interested in going to medical school eventually. Like, I get that now. If not, it's very surface level. It could be any student telling me, I want to go to college so I could be a doctor, right? So yeah, definitely want to paint those stories, paint that better picture of yourself for who's reading on the other side.
Definitely. I thank you, because sometimes they listen to me and they go, she's crazy. I am. However, they hear it from you and it makes sense, right? So, we hinted on and noted MIT, and I know for me that tends to be one of the main schools that a large number of students will apply to. Can Do you know what schools, like, do you guys keep a list of, okay, these are the schools that everyone always applies to? Do you know
Yeah,
what those are?
yeah. I mean, I would say like a lot of we have a baseline is that all of our schools are committed to having diverse socioeconomic classes on their campuses, right? Like they know that they could do better by having more low income students be on their campuses. And so they're fully committed to supporting students and they partner with us to help find them and get them there, right? And so all of our schools are really great options for students. And, I think for us, like, we see our schools as having a lot of the same resources, graduation rates, job placement rates, but some names are better known than others. And so, year after year, we'll see students that just pick Ivy League schools or schools with big names that they've heard of before. Even if they don't even know where it's located, they're still gonna rank it or they're still gonna pick it. And I'm like, do you know where the school is? Did you know you just applied to California? Like you said you want to stay close to home. Like, so I would say, we have really great schools regardless of where you like, and a lot of the ones that students end up kind of choosing over and over are kind of those bigger names. But I love it when I talk to scholars of QuestBridge, students that are already at their college campus that have gone through this process already. And I love hearing how they're like, before QuestBridge, I had no idea that Oberlin existed or that, this other school existed. And now I'm here and I love it. I can't see myself anywhere else, right? It's the perfect place for me. But I wouldn't have known that unless I would have researched and applied and gone through the process. So I love hearing that's sort of the experience of most students. They end up exactly where they're meant to be. And they end up realizing that all of these schools have amazing programs and support systems available to them.
So if I'm a student applying, I'm not, y'all, trust me, I wouldn't. But if I was a student applying and I wanted to get, and yes, I'm about to ask her a spill the tea moment here, y'all. And I wanted to kind of make my application stand out, make myself stand out. What are some things that you would tell these kids to make that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've mentioned kind of like baseline, like give yourself the time to fill out the application, give your teacher recommenders the time to do those recommendations. Like, if you're starting later on, closer to the deadline, that kind of comes through, right? Like it's going to be a little less polished. So just, be organized, keep yourself accountable early on to get it done. But regardless, like inside the application, I think one of the areas where students sort of maybe sleep on it a little bit, and you can really stand out in this way, is by putting some extra emphasis in your activity section. So the activity section, I think, students sort of list the things that they're in, but they don't think really critically about like how that's coming off. And sometimes, you have two ranges. You have the students that forget to list something, and then we're reading their essay and we're like, oh, why didn't they put that in the activities, right? Or like, why are we learning about it from their teacher recommendation, right? They could have told us more. So you have, that side, and then you have the students that are involved in a lot of things and they list all of them. And I'm like, okay, but which ones are really important to you and why, right? Like, so, just be thoughtful about those activities that you're listing, and especially when it comes to like the ones that aren't school-based, right? A lot of students don't think that it's important that they're the primary translator for their family and that they've been doing that since they're 5. It's super important, right? Those are adult-like responsibilities that you're taking on that not every student will have. And so it's going to make you stand out when you're providing that kind of information to us in that context of, what your life is like outside of the classroom. So, give yourself the time and the space to polish that section even more, right? So I think that is one of those sections that we see that students sort of, maybe take for granted or kind of sleep on.
Thank you so much for talking about that, because again, it's kind of like when your mom tells you something, you don't listen to them, but the stranger down the corner will tell you, and you're like, that was so insightful. It's like, what?
Yeah.
You know, so thank you, stranger from down the street. Now, I know that, a lot of students will look at these large named schools, like I said, MIT, again, on their own level. However, let's look at like a school like Columbia. I know this from working with the student this past year. I always try to encourage them to not only look at those top schools, and I say top Ivy League schools, but there are some amazing liberal arts schools. Like you said, some students wouldn't even know what Oberlin was, but it's a great school. But the other amazing fact is that some of those schools actually have cross-curricular programs with each other, and you can get not only a liberal arts point of view, right, but also an Ivy League. Can you hint on that a little bit?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that our student or our colleges kind of break down, right? We have the most typical sort of breakdown that you'll hear is like a research university and a liberal arts college, right? And there's a lot of misconceptions about what a liberal arts college is. So I'd love to kind of get on my little soapbox and define that for people. So
Go ahead,
liberal
girl.
arts
Still in
colleges.
the tea, y'all. Still in the tea right here.
So those three words mean have their own definitions on their own, but put together, they mean something else. So liberal arts just means that you are going to a school that has a curriculum where you could study across disciplines, right? You could study English and music and STEM fields. So it doesn't mean that you're not going to be doing research there, or that there aren't research there. In fact, for a lot of liberal arts colleges, because a lot of them only cater to undergraduates as opposed to graduate students, there's more research opportunities in some cases, or research opportunities are available even younger, right? And so, there's that kind of misperception of like what is a liberal arts college. So those are two breakdowns, but I think there's other breakdowns that our students, until they start researching, they don't fully know. So things like cross campus consortiums or partnerships. In the case of Columbia, you have Barnard that's across the street. Students could be cross-listed in either one, right? Barnard is an all-women's college, so there are like gender-specific schools. We have 4 all-women's colleges that we offer in our partnership, but you could be at Barnard and be studying there and also be studying at Columbia, right? Or vice versa. So, there's a lot of opportunities once you start kind of doing the research and looking into the schools. If you like the city life, you go to Boston, there's so many schools, or so many of our partners in that geographical area.
Yeah.
You're gonna have friends at these other schools, and in many cases you can take classes and be in clubs at these other schools. And so yeah, I think it's more about figuring out, what do you want from that college experience? If it's like, there's no way I can live in a big city, I want it to be more low key, like want it to feel more suburban, or like a smaller town feel. That's what I feel more comfortable with. I want a small school. There are schools like that. If you're like, I went to a small school, I want a school where not everyone knows my name, so I'm going to go to a big school. There's schools like that too, right? So it's really kind of doing some self-reflection, getting to know what you want, and then recognizing that there's probably a couple of schools that will fit that criteria, right? If you like, again, if you like Columbia, like maybe it's because you want to be in a big city. Well, maybe Chicago is something that you might want to look into, right? Or you like it because they do have a very sort of core curriculum, right? That liberal arts curriculum is built in, you know exactly what classes you're going to take. There's other schools that offer that too. So yeah, you just want to do a little bit of self-reflection and thinking about what you want that college experience to be, and know that there are many schools that might fit that profile.
So when they're looking at their schools, we know at one point they're going to have to rank them, right? When they're doing their ranking, yeah, I guess, should they be putting down, like we mentioned, Columbia and Barnard, and I know that on the West Coast, there's some schools, I think Swarthmore is also associated with some others. Should they be ranking them right along with those schools? Like what would be your best suggestion for them to look at that rank and put in the right schools?
Yeah, so for students who are finalists and they're participating in the match, meaning that you're ranking up to 15 schools to be considered for that match scholarship that full 4-year guaranteed scholarship at our schools, you want to be very intentional. It is a binding commitment, right? So, and that means that any one of those schools might offer you that match scholarship and you are committed to going, right? Just as they are committed to giving you the scholarship. So, walking away from that commitment can look like other schools, possibly rejecting you or withdrawing their admissions offers because you've done that. So really think critically about what schools you're putting on that list. That being said, the more schools you put on your list, the more opportunities that you'll have to be able to match, right? And so, if you have done the research and have done that like self-reflection kind of work, and you know that all of the schools that you're putting down are schools that you would be happy living at and being at for 4 years, you can rank up to those 15. And, if you do want to go the route of, I know that I want to be in New York City, I know that I want that kind of experience, like you probably do want to put Columbia forward. However, if you're like, oh, I don't want to go to a women's college, I can't see myself there, then no, like don't stress about it. You don't have to do that. So it is a very personal choice, right? You really have to reflect on what are the things that you want to get out of that time. Know that there are many schools that will give that to you, but ultimately you're the one that's going to be there, right? It's not your mom, it's not your counselor, it's not your friend who's telling you where to go. No, it's you. You'll be there. You'll be taking the classes. So you have to be happy about that list, and whether it's number 1 or number 5 or number 15 that matches with you, that's where you have to go, right? And so you want to be happy about where that is.
Oh, do it with the students, especially if they get matched. Is there an opportunity for them to go and visit these schools? Do they set up like an open house or something like that for them?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of our college partners, so, once the student is matched, they're considered an early admit, right? So they've been admitted to the school. They know that they're going because of the binding process. And so a lot of these schools will have opportunities for travel either earlier on or as like part of the admitted student stay in the spring. And so those options are really depending on what school and what's available. But a lot of them do get invited to these admit early days in the spring. Those experiences are usually fully paid for by the school, right? Or there's some significant financial aid, especially in the case of matched scholarship recipients. Like typically, if there's aid, they're getting that aid, and so there are those opportunities to go. Sometimes that's not possible either because the school, doesn't offer it, or maybe the student already had plans and they can't attend. Right. And so I will just say there's a lot, especially I think after 2020 and the pandemic, there's a lot of really good content online that students can look at, right? If you're matched or if you're looking at schools, like they all have virtual campus tours. Most of them offer some sort of way of getting connected to students. And if not, on their QuestBridge website, you could even get connected to the QuestBridge scholars on that campus by reaching out. And so, all of them are on social media. They have extensive web pages. So I would say there's a lot of ways of doing that research and sort of seeing if that school is a good fit, even if you can't make it to campus. So
I have learned so much, and I'm so grateful that you joined us today. I mean, I hope everyone has really paid attention. Of course, you can always go back to the beginning and start it, and you can see episode 1 also to get all the information. So thank you so much, Christian, for all this information. Do you have any last words you'd like to say to any of the students that's thinking maybe I should go for QuestBridge?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously am a big supporter, but I will say it again. This is one of many options that you have to apply to schools, and I personally feel like the benefits that come with the QuestBridge process, right? The multiple opportunities for admission, the matched scholarship, the community of scholars that you'll find and be connected to once you're on campus and beyond. These are all really great benefits, but really doing that self-reflection and thinking about like, is this how I want to apply to college? Is this somewhere I want to go to college? Like those are all super, super important, right? So that you feel good as you're going through this process, because admissions and applying to college, it's stressful. It is, but you want to give yourself the time and give yourself the space to reflect and to feel good about it as you're going.
Yes. You know, we talked about it. Christian mentioned it earlier. If you're going to ask for letters of recommendation, I'm going to tell you, especially for your counselors, remember, you know, it's really early in the school year. So there's a lot of schedule changing and meeting with students and stuff. Give at least, I'd say at least 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks. If they're not coming through, remind them. It's okay. Be polite. Be polite. It's not what you do, is how you do it. So, you know, you get your recommendations, you get yourself in order. At all of the schools in Orange County, we have a college and career specialist, so you can always go and talk to them. Of course, feel free to speak to your counselors. And each school has someone like me, and you may see me on some of your campuses, a college transition counselor that's there to help. And we'll help you with your application, with your essays. That's what we're there with. We're sharing the love, people. We're trying to share the love. So we don't just do it here on Spill the Tea, but we also do it in the classrooms and in your schools. So you can reach out and ask questions. Don't be afraid to do that, but try. There's only two answers they can give you, yes or no. Neither one is going to kill you. One might sting, but it doesn't mean you can't go on and continue to apply. And like Christian said, you have options even with QuestBridge. So if you are eligible for it, go for it. Go for it. Ask the questions, apply. Again, Christian, thank you so much. I truly appreciate you being here. And for those of you watching, I appreciate you guys watching. If you like what you see, go ahead and like the video and look out for more episodes of Spill the Tea. Until next time, I'm Keisha. Take care. Thanks for joining us.